G'day everyone, this is Jackson Millar, the Wealth Mentor, the co-founder and CEO of Aureus Financial.
Sam Panetta, the CEO and co-founder of Aureus Financial.
And joining us today is Jake Osborne from Bazaar Finance.
G'day, Jake.
On the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Mate, so it's a bit of an introduction. We've been working together for a little while. Obviously, you've worked with some mutual clients. You've been doing some fantastic things in the financing space, particularly helping small business people to basically facilitate the process of growing and scaling their business, utilising finance as a vehicle. So, mate, give us a bit of a crash course about you and what you do.
Okay, so about, 13 months, so past that dreaded first year.
Yeah, congratulations.
Sort of went out on my own. Background was actually in car dealership finance. Moved into broking after a bit of a moral conflict with that role. Moved into sort of broking for a company in North Sydney, and then sort of went out on my own to sort of make it a little bit more transparent and easy and sort of have a longer term relationship with clients, which has turned out to be a lot of fun as well. So 13 months in.
Beautiful,
which
mate.
is good.
So tell us more about Bazaar Finance.
So at the moment it's myself, 2 subcontractors and a lot of sort of partners like yourself. So the main role is to be kind of explain things to clients and offer a little bit more of a transparent service to my clients, and then in turn your clients also. And then moving forward in a way that's going to be, as I said, a long-term relationship. Being a startup business, there's no point in having clients that we're going to see once. We want to be able to see them 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
So ideally, it's similar to Aureus Financial in the sense that within our network, we can help with sort of sending you guys and using you guys for mortgages, myself for the asset finance accounts and things like that. So there's no foreign terms to financial sort of needs.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, so we're both finance brokers, you and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, they're familiar with what a mortgage broker does. They understand that if you want to buy an investment property, if you want to buy your home or refinance, you go and see a mortgage broker and they can help you out with that. I think your space is a little bit less understood, the asset finance space. So why don't we explain a little bit about exactly what asset finance is and some of the things that you do? And I know you've done some quirky stuff, so let's hear about it.
Probably asset finance is such a broad term. There's nothing you can really limit it to.
Yeah.
Doing anything from cars to coffee machines to, I think we discussed it. I did a virtual reality deal, which was hard because the bank hadn't quite figured out how to price it because it's never been done before. So asset finance is, the way I like to explain it, is anything with a serial number.
Yeah.
So even if the idea seems quite crazy, or if it's a startup where you're looking to fit out an entire coffee shop, for example, all of that applies to asset finance. So we can go from quite literally the most crazy ideas to things as simple as a van or a family car. So it's a little bit all over.
And I think it's one of these things, mate, that even in my first-hand experience and some of the horror stories I've heard from clients, I think a lot of people have been burnt in this space.
Big time.
For example, my old man went to go buy a second-hand car, and the dealership put him in touch with an asset finance guy.
Yep.
And the guy was just a shonky bloke, did all this dodgy stuff. A little bit of kind of a snake oil salesperson, you know what I mean? And I'm sure as soon as you think of like Parramatta Road car dealerships,
it kind of throws you off, doesn't it? Yeah.
But the thing that's really interested me about what you do, mate, is that you have a very personal approach to what you do, and it's a sharp contrast to the typical asset finance guy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So coming from car dealership, the dark depths of
The
cars,
as we're starting to see in the news.
What made you want to do this differently, mate?
I don't think, in a personal sense, there's sort of the financial side for me is not as important. I know that sounds real cliche and real sort of sob story, but the way I kind of think about it is, if I have a client now that I get on board and we give them a fair deal, honest deal, that's transparent, I can expect to see that client and have a relationship with that client until I'm retired. So it's actually more value for me to do the right thing in what I do, because if you see a client once and you never see them again, the relationship's over. they're never going to say nice things about you if they're not going to use you again. It's never going to work. Your business won't grow. So it's actually in my best interest to do the right thing in order to see it. And it's a lot easier. You guys probably find in this what you do. If you've already spoken to a client and you've already sort of helped with one mortgage, when you're doing that second mortgage, it's a breeze. They trust you. You've probably got half the documents already. So I'll get clients sort of that I started when I was broken before that will call me now and say, look, hey, I need to get a second car for the wife. We're upgrading to an SUV. We've got 9 kids now, whatever it is. I'll already have all their documents, all their pay slips. So it'll be a case of just updating stuff. So that's a real different relationship to, say, the car dealers, which is point of sale, right? As soon as you leave the car dealership office, they don't care. No. In fact, the big problem with the banks at the moment, I don't know if you guys saw it, but once you leave the office, there's no responsibility at all. So you've got to look at it in a common sense way, right? These guys are getting paid to make more money off their clients. So there's a bit of a conflict between do they get paid or do the right thing, and it's sort of not balancing up for sort of that industry as such. So I think it's just a little bit of an easier option.
You linked us to an article recently, which was kind of and the media's starting to get wind of this, right? And I think that a lot of these guys have flown under the radar for such a long amount of time because the consumer has been majorly unaware of that they're actually getting stung. Because as long as you've got your car, and even if you are paying an exorbitant amount of interest or repayments, and it hasn't been structured correctly, most consumers don't know the difference.
Exactly right.
I had an instance of a client recently who has done very well in his business, has worked really, really hard and wanted to treat himself and went to quite a big dealership to buy a new Mustang. And he got stuffed around for months. The in-house dealer quoted him a ridiculous interest rate. I think it was like 8 or 9%, and the guy's a homeowner, has a pretty substantial portfolio. It was all structured incorrectly, and they just stuffed him around in every possible way that you could think of. And it just goes to show that there's no responsibility.
No.
And it was really refreshing to hear that you guys invest in a relationship, because it seems a little bit counterintuitive. Like you guys are helping a client with a transaction, but there's the lifetime customer value, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, that's our values for this are so aligned, right? That's why obviously us three, we're working together because we believe in the same thing. And I've had this conversation with clients before, and they think it's still this churn and burn model where you try to get a client in, you try and maximise the amount of money you're going to make from them, get them out the door and try to get the next client in the door. And you need to educate them a little bit, but that even not only on a value sense, but on a commercial basis, you're better off making less money and keeping that client for the next 50 years and doing work for them and their family and their kids and their grandkids one day. And that's how you build a long-term business. Do you know what I mean? But
I fully agree with you, and I mean, it's one of those things that the nature of both of our companies is very similar in the sense that we have multiple products, right? So with me, for example, I might a guy might own, let's say for example, we'll take a carpenter, right, who's 25 years old, just started his business, hasn't yet bought a place, but the business is going well, right? I might do a ute for him, a ute for his staff member, $30,000 in new tools, then you guys will do the mortgage, we'll send them across an accountant and things like that. Now, we might charge lower than the rest of all our competition on all of those things, okay? Reason being is because we're helping with all of them. We're emotionally almost invested in his business. It's almost like a partnership between the two companies, which will then allow it to be a 20 to 30, 40 year partnership. And that to me is worth more money than sort of just seeing a guy walk out the door and then never seeing him again.
I get you.
And that's the crust of what we do. We're trying to help these, specifically business owners as well, help them continue to grow their business. That's why you buy the van, or you fit out that coffee shop, or that's why you buy these tools, because you're trying to get ahead. And we're helping facilitate that.
I think the network also helps. I mean, obviously having sort of an accountancy background with yourself and things like that, it's easier for a finance broker. I mean, I think a lot of people have had problems with the structure of the deal. So setting it up in a way that is easier for the broker or easier for the car dealership, but not necessarily going to be easier for the client in the long run.
Sure.
A big thing I push is tax efficiency. So if we're going to get you a vehicle for work, it's a lot easier for me to actually speak directly with your accountant.
I get you.
Okay, or at least ask the client to speak to their accountant so that when we set it up the first time, it's done right. And come tax time, it's going to be an easy job.
Well, here's the thing, like we have so many clients that get this kind of barbecue advice, right? They're at a barbecue on a Sunday, their mate
They're a couple of beers down.
Their mates told them about what they've done on Sunday.
Sure, it's Saturday.
A bit dusty coming and they come to us and say, oh, my friend's got a novated lease, I want to set up a novated lease. And when we actually have the time to actually go through the pros and cons of setting these things up, more often than not, it's not the right structure.
Yeah.
And what you particularly find is that these clients, if they go straight into the dealership, speak to the finance guy, then say, I want a novated lease, their eyes light up because they go, yes, I'm going to make so much commission on this, and lock them in.
Yeah, I think structure is sometimes more important than rate and price, which is funny.
So.
I mean, I've had situations where, to put it in perspective, if it's not structured right, you're not going to get what you need back come tax time. So even if you've got a 3% or a 4% interest rate, if it's set up wrong, it means nothing. And if you're going to end up paying sort of more down the line when it comes to selling your car. Say, for example, a broker's given you the wrong balloon for that car, or a long residual. So, we tend to sort of evaluate what we actually think the car's going to be worth at the end of the term. So what I mean by that is if you were to do a loan, for example, and it was the residual's 40% of $100,000, okay? If that car's not worth that $40,000 in 5 years' time, it doesn't matter what the rate is. You're still going to be owing more money than what
you're in
car's
trouble,
worth, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by when I say structure is probably more important than rate. Structure is more important than, maybe if you save yourself $50 a month, is it worth then having a $10,000 lump sum at the end, which is only going to really hurt you later?
Yeah.
Well, we had. It's funny that you mentioned that, right? So a lot of these guys that are selling cars, that are selling finance, they're not really thinking about their clients. And we had people approach us not very long ago, and growing family, and they were in the market. They wanted some new vehicles. Anyway, they got upsold to these brand new cars with some big finance and big repayments. 3 months into it. And they realised, we can't afford these cars, we can't afford these repayments.
Yeah.
Well, who was the guy that you spoke to that got you these car loans? Do you know what I mean? They should have taken that into account, what your household cash flow is. And 3 months in, you couldn't afford that on day one.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
And if you can't afford it on day one, you're not going to afford it 6 months later.
That's what I mean.
In fact, it's probably going to go backwards and you'll be able to afford less.
Exactly.
No, I agree with that. I think dealerships pride themselves on emotion. I know I'm talking about my main competitor here, but they do, that's how they make their money. I try to take the emotion out of it. Whether it's downgrading from one car to maybe the model before to save yourself 10 grand at the start, which will, it might not be the exact car you want, but sometimes it's a smarter financial decision. You don't go buy a $3 million house if you can only afford a $1 million house. It's the same kind of thing. The further backwards you go, it's going to take a lot longer to go forward to where you need to go, right? So I think it's a smarter decision up front.
Look, I think these are the values that ultimately get us all into working for ourselves, right? Because we're all working for someone, like working for the man. They're trying to push their agenda because they want to make a buck. And we ultimately get to this tipping point where we decide that we're going to go and do something for ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
So, mate, what was was that the main motivator that got you into business?
I think the reason I wanted to go out on my own was pretty simple. It started very small and then it kind of grew. So it started with I wanted to work outdoors more. I wanted to go work at the beach more. I wanted to go see my clients rather than speak to them on the phone. I've always much preferred sort of going to my clients, a coffee shop next to the house and sitting down and actually speaking to them because things pop up, and you get to know people better and so on and so forth. After sort of that first emotional reason, I then was more interested in the type of work. Similar to what you guys are doing, it's a very open, very transparent, very easy flowing sort of business to get into. So that was kind of the second one. And the third one is growing something that's worth something more. Being able to grow something which is a big network of clients, a big network of partners, which it makes life easier for all parties. So yeah, that's probably
And you're the king of not working in an office, mate. You
I don't
float
think I
around
work in
to
office.
parks and beaches on
It's
most
the first
sunny
time I've
days,
been inside
don't you?
more. Yeah, no, exactly, mate. I mean, and that's the beauty of technology now, isn't it?
It is,
I
mate.
mean, we can set up anywhere, and it's kind of, I much prefer it because your days are shorter, but they're kind of, you get more done in your days. So
It's having that variety as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and I really enjoy that. Like, I'm the type of person where I really enjoy working, but having a change of scenery does a lot for me in terms of being refreshed. And
Yeah.
like, for example, I try and take 2 months off a year as a minimum.
Yeah.
But while I'm away, for example, last time I went away, I wrote my book.
yeah,
And next time I go away, I'll be working on projects behind the scenes and
Yep.
doing stuff.
getting the big picture
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
exactly. But having that
course.
change of scenery makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think it opens up your mind a little bit. Sort of,
Yeah.
you kind of, you're influenced by so much when you're in a different situation every day. So
And I think that's the epitome of a lifestyle business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this kind of age of traditional businesses where you're sitting in the one place for 30 or 40 years, getting this organic growth, and really kind of doing it the old way,
Yeah.
is starting to evolve and shift and change. And it's kind of our generation that's really trying to mix things up and do things differently.
yeah, of course.
I saw something on the news the other day, very quickly, because I don't watch TV, right? But I was in passing. I walked past the TV and I seen these tech companies that are getting together and renting out these big commercial premises, and they're essentially just floating desks everywhere, and there's no set hours, right?
No,
so there's
of
all these
course.
different
Yeah.
companies calibrating together, and Tech's the leader in the
Sure.
space, and they're all just floating around on bean bags, and the work gets done. It's not that the
Yeah.
work doesn't get done, but it's a different thing from, years ago you get to work at 7:55, you dock in, at 10 o'clock the bell goes off, you sit down, you eat for 15 minutes, you dodge.
It reminds me of a factory.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
like, it's a bit,
and the world's even
doesn't
for
work that way
those
anymore.
sorts of businesses, the world's
Yeah.
changed.
Correct.
If you're going to be so automated, build a robot. Get a
Yeah,
robot to do
exactly.
it. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think there's a sort of software, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it pretty much monitors so people can work from anywhere on their laptop.
Yeah, okay.
And it monitors how much work they're doing,
Mm.
how many hours a day they're working. It doesn't really matter when they're working those hours, but obviously employers are kind of saying, look, let's save the money in office space, let's get out, let's go do stuff, let's go meet people. If you want to work from home, you're as efficient as you would in the office. It sort of works for everyone, really.
Well, it's good. I think it's about that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because I know that from when I was in corporate, it was just a slave drive, right?
Yeah.
You're working like 60, 70-hour weeks. You're high stress, like high pressure, and there's just better ways to do it. Like even when we go into the city now, Sam, and you look around and everyone's just a robot. Everyone looks miserable. They're in their zone. They're kind of still in the matrix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's refreshing to be able to look at that from the outside in and see how we've been able to create, I guess, a different way of life.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, look, don't get me wrong, sometimes there's times you need to sit down and you need to sit in front of your computer and not move.
Oh, you got to do the work.
Yeah,
You know,
my
you gotta
accounting
do the
stuff can't
work.
be done at the beach because I just won't do it.
Yeah.
But I think in our line of work, it worked well being out and about because you can. I always find if I'm out, I'm sitting in a coffee shop and a client says, "Look, mate, I've got a lunch break. Can you get to Manly by 12 o'clock?" I just jump in a cab or get in the car or whatever. I think it's just the way the world's going, especially for service-based industries.
You know what I reckon's more important than before? It used to be how much time you were spending on a specific task. Right now, I
Yeah.
think it's more important how much energy you're
Yeah.
spending on a specific task and
Yeah.
how what's the word I'm looking for? How efficient you're being.
Yep.
Right. So I know when I need to head down ass up, I need to get things done. I'll sit there. We've got noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah.
I'll sit there with my computer on. I'll put my noise cancelling
Yeah.
headphones, and I'll just sit there and I'll punch out task after task after task after task.
What's that movie? The Social Network. Have you seen the Facebook movie?
No.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah.
You know when it's like they put their headphones in and no one can talk to
No,
them.
exactly.
It's like these guys like.
And then
that's
we
what
do
we're
it
talking
here. We
about.
do it here in the office, and you
Yeah, it's
don't
good.
realise after you've worked for an hour and a half, or
How
2
much
hours.
you've done.
And I promise, in those 2 hours, I've gotten more done than most people doing a 9 to 5
Yeah.
will get done in a 5-hour period. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I
People
think
are just
that's the
making
beauty
use of
of
the
it.
time that they've got, I believe. I'm a big believer that you make best use of the time you're given, and there's enough time under the sun to do everything that you want to achieve.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're always going to say, and we've spoken about this a lot on the podcast and in a lot of our content, you're always going to be busy, regardless of what you're doing. Like I've had 85-year-old clients that have been retired for years that are still busy.
flat out, yeah. I always wonder what they're doing.
Exactly.
It's
right.
always something, isn't it?
But then you've got to consume yourself with something. So I think that by giving yourself and being ambitious and taking on the task load, you'll get it done.
Yep.
So on that point, mate, what's the ambition for you in business? So what are you working towards?
It's kind of a tough question. I don't know yet. Is the honest answer to that. I think as sort of new opportunities and new complications arise, you kind of get a bigger picture. I mean, right now it's creating a big sort of network. So my focus at the moment is more or less, firstly, I'm taking on less clients so I can spend more time on them. Taking on less clients then just means I'm there if they need me at the moment. The other half of the business is partnerships. So I want to have sort of a service that can open the door in anything that our clients need. Very similar to what you guys do, right? Once that I exhaust that, my time in that will take on more stuff.
Fantastic.
And then grow. So each broker won't be over-exhausted with 100 clients. It'll be maybe 30 clients. And then sort of building. So it should have a bit of a natural progression. And then eventually, move down the South Coast.
Live
Yeah, I think it's not leaning that
Is there
way.
more beaches down the south coast? Is there?
Maybe more beaches, or it's just a bit quiet. I don't know. I was just reading something the other day. And I saw a house owner. I was like,
Bit of the
I could
sea.
do that. Yeah.
And we've had clients that have done that too. Like, I think that's the good thing about being a business owner is that we have the ability to do that, and I guess from what you're doing and setting yourself up to work from anywhere, it doesn't matter where you are. But we've got clients that live down the south coast. They've got a team in Sydney and across Australia. They're living the dream and they're running a successful business, and they're creating a life that they want for themselves.
Exactly. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Look, there's. You go look at the rich list, right? There's no specific location. Obviously, the bigger the population, like Sydney, the more likely they're trying to be from Sydney.
Sure.
But there's a lot of guys who are very, very successful business people, and it doesn't mean that they go to Sydney CBD every day.
Yeah, of course.
There was that big trading firm, and I can't remember the name of it now. 4 young guys. They've got an office in Wollongong, cross road from the beach, and they go surfing every day.
Yeah,
and
nice.
they made a lot of money in their GFC. Hundreds of millions, right?
Yeah.
And they're from the little suburb in Wollongong, and that's where they go to work every day. So do you have to go to Sydney CBD every day to win in life? No.
I was sitting on a beach in Bali for most of January.
There you go.
And I
You just got back from another holiday.
Yeah, I went to Hawaii last week.
So good.
But I'll be honest with you, the biggest problem is time zones, right? It's not how far away you are from the client. It's the time zone. So Hawaii is perfect. It's only 3 hours difference. It's just a day behind. So I reckon out of the 5 clients I would have settled or dealt with, I reckon 1 knew I was away, and the others were just there's no difference, because I think that's the beauty. You can speak to someone on the phone, you can write emails, you can attach documents, you can do quite literally anything from anywhere.
But this is challenging the status quo, and I found this, like I spent 2 months in Brazil last year, and the time difference was difficult, given that it's about 13 hours time difference. But I'm a night owl anyway, I work well at night. Exactly. And I get into my zone. But I was having meetings with clients whilst I was there, and then I was like, wow, where are you? I'm like, I'm in Brazil, and it was actually
that would be a funny one.
They were very impressed of the basis that I could continue to run my business and do what I needed to do from halfway around the world. And I think that it's challenging the status quo, where the traditional mindset of business would be, no, you can't do that. You've got to be on your client's beckoning call and just around the corner. But no, we can be halfway around the world and still deliver exactly the same service, and also set this expectation that we're actually living the dream, like we're following what we're preaching.
Exactly. I think you've got to build your business around that. I think majority of business owners still cannot do that, right? They haven't structured their business in a way that allows them to do that. They're still owned by the business rather than the business, them owning the business, I should say. And I think as a business owner, it's a shame that you fall slave to this business that you've created. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that way. It should be enjoyable.
I think when you're sort of enthusiastic and happy about what you do, it rubs off everyone else.
Exactly.
And then makes everyone's day a little bit better, and then we all sort of enjoy it. It's a good time.
Well, the last thing you want to do is get jaded, and I've seen this happen far too often with business owners. They get into business, they create this bottleneck, and for lack of a better term, it is an ego thing.
Yeah.
It is that I need to be the be all and end all, the centre of my business.
Yeah.
And therefore, because they create this reliance, they are really setting themselves up to never be able to escape their business. And the longer they drag it out, the bigger this J curve is. If you do try and pull yourself out, the harder it becomes.
It's going to be exhausting, and then you make bad decisions, and it kind of just goes down. Yeah, I agree with that.
Look, and who wants to deal with somebody who's jaded, like been in business for 10 years, never been on a holiday, is stressed, tired, and it kind of oozes through everything that they do.
It just shows, mate.
It does.
It shows.
Exactly.
Mate, on a different topic, right? Asset finance, and I know you've done some pretty cool stuff. Tell us about some of the coolest things that you've financed.
Gosh, I think there was one pops to mind was a 1969 Mustang, which I had to get converted from left to right hand side. That was cool, just because that was a dream car. I think the virtual reality thing was probably the coolest I've ever seen. It was a sort of a startup company who were pretty much using those gaming goggles. Have you seen, the sort of virtual reality stuff?
Yeah.
And they were sort of going to be pretty much training armed forces, police, and all other emergency services by using the goggles.
Yeah, wow.
So you walk into a blank room as a firefighter, and you'd be put in the middle of the fire. So
That's
and
amazing,
they were sort of
isn't it?
fighting for government contracts to sort of be able to achieve that. And that would just go. To me, that was just so far advanced that I didn't even know how to pitch that to the bank. It was kind of like, these guys do this, and it sounds really cool, and that's about as far as we got. But it was, it just shows there's no limit to it. It's very interesting.
Did you finance it?
Yeah, we got a bit of money for it. Yeah, it was good.
So good. Any supercars or super yachts or
Lamborghinis, they're always around. Couple boats. Boats are the same. Boats are a bit sort of, I don't know. Boats are boats to me.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about the motorbike you just built.
Yeah.
Things like that I'm interested to do.
Sure.
So, yeah.
The quirky stuff, right?
Yeah, the quirky stuff's always more fun because you've never done it before. So it's always new ground.
Exactly right. So, mate, given you've 13 months in business, what's been the biggest challenge that you've kind of encountered to date?
Sort of, as we mentioned earlier, sort of breaking down the status quo of what a finance broker is. I think that's something that you can sort of be as upfront and transparent, but in the back of some people's head, it's always that doubt of, can I trust this guy? There's a guy from the dealership quoting me.
Sure.
I see all these articles about finance, maybe it's something, whatever. That's probably the biggest challenge. It's trying to, even when you are doing the right thing, it's actually trying to show people you're doing the right thing, not just saying it.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of one of those things, but I think that's going to take a while for people to get, but eventually we'll get it.
Well, it's hard to illustrate, isn't it? Because I think people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I referred to one of my friends recently, and he, when he had interaction with you, and it took us a little while for him to actually reach out and have a conversation. Once he had the conversation, he come back to me and he says, mate, why is there such a price difference between what Jake can do and what the bank can do? And I go, mate,
that's just the way it is.
This is the way it is.
Yeah.
I think that's, you got to remember, take a big finance broker company, right, with 20 employees. They have to pay for the big office, they've got to pay for the big salaries, they've got to pay for all this stuff. I'm intentionally always going to be a small business.
Sure.
Because I don't have any of that. Like I said, I don't even have an office. I work from DIY Beach. We're always going to be cheaper because we're not paying, our business expenses don't need to be high. So that if your business expenses are high, your profits have to be higher. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. So that's kind of, Zach turned out to be a great guy as well.
Yeah.
His rugby league commentary on Facebook is outstanding.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really.
And look, it's these characters that make it enjoyable to be in business. You know
I think
what I mean?
so.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually got along with, it's quite often you find, and you guys probably know, it's quite often when you actually speak to a client, it turns out you've got things in common.
Yeah.
It turns out you actually can talk about stuff completely, different to what you were doing. And a lot of the time you end up speaking to them every now and again after the deal's done. So, people like that make it worth it, really.
Well, we've got a strict no dickhead policy. Like, we don't
way
want to
easier.
work with anyone that we don't enjoy working with. You know what I mean? It's because it just seeps through your day. You deal with one guy who's just absolutely destroying your universe, and that ruins your whole day. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly
So
right.
I think you do have to work with people that you genuinely like.
If you're working with someone you like and something goes wrong, because we all know things go wrong from time to time, especially in finance. You might get a bad credit rating that we didn't know, or something like that. If you like the person and if everyone gets along, and as you said, no one's being a dickhead, you can overcome that problem really easy. It's when people start making bigger problems out of little problems, it starts to get to the point where, I know you guys probably have it, where you're 3 weeks into a deal that it should have only taken a week, and you just go, these guys, I'm going insane. And if you sort of just a little bit of courtesy going both ways, and you actually like each other, it's quite easy to do.
Well, it is a 50-50 partnership, right? That you've both got to show up to work together. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that have certain expectations and don't put value on the work that's actually involved in what we actually do. And I think that's the reason why we're so strict on the people that we work with. And the people that we work with get a lot of value out of it. So that's what it's all about.
Mate, what do you do outside of business?
A lot. Probably more than I should. So at the moment, looking forward to rugby season, playing rugby again. After a couple of years out, sort of back into it this year. As you said, go to the beach a lot. Play a bit of guitar on the side.
Yeah, okay.
What was I like to say? Do a bit of finance broking on the side, mostly.
Do a bit of finance broking.
And sort of socialising. So nothing too out of the ordinary, really.
So what's the means to an end for you, mate? I guess obviously you're working towards something, you're in business for a reason, you're working hard. What's the ultimate goal for you personally? You obviously mentioned you want potentially do the sea change.
Yeah, I think sea change, or maybe back. I spent 2 years in London.
Okay.
Maybe eventually, long way down the line, going back. Maybe to the States. I mean, I've always enjoyed travel. So I think that when I left Australia, I was 18, did 50 cities before.
Really?
21, so I wouldn't mind doing 50 more.
That's an achievement. That's really cool. Where'd you go? How did you go to 50 cities?
Mate,
you have to tell us more now.
No, it's way too. I don't know where to start. So I moved obviously to England when I was 18, which was a perfect hub. London is a perfect hub to live because you can speak the language and work. I was playing really low level rugby over there, but it was a place to live, right? And there was €30 flights to most places in Europe.
So good.
I mean, even North Africa. I think it took 3 hours and €70 or something to get to Morocco from London. So I just sort of spent from 18 to 21 just doing that.
Fantastic.
That's so cool.
I think we did. I could leave my apartment. I could get off work at 4 o'clock in London on Friday, have dinner in Paris on Friday night, and then just stay for 2 days.
That's fantastic. And this is all about life experience, right? And I think that in this day and age, there's far too many, I guess, book smart people. Not many people that have a whole lot of life experience. And I really think that all of this kind of travel and this experience that you get through experiencing the world, meeting new people, is equivalent to having a master's degree.
Of course.
Right. Because you meet people, don't you? And you learn about, you might speak to a doctor and learn a little bit, and then speak to an author and learn a little bit, and sort of keep moving. And it's funny what those sort of conversations you get in a cafe on the outside world when you're not one other person speak English, but no one else does.
Yeah.
And then you end up being friends with that person for a while, and you're learning all about them. It's I agree, and it makes it easier to relate to people.
Exactly. What do you think has been some of the most important lessons that you've learned through your travels?
Through travels, I think business related or life related.
Anything, mate. What comes to mind?
I think just to understand and try to learn a little bit about everyone else. Whether it's a conversation that comes up when you're speaking to a client, or when you're sitting next to someone on a plane, whatever. If you know a little bit about something, and then you meet someone new that does that for a living, or is interested in that, you can kind of the questions to ask, and you can spark a conversation and show a little bit of interest in someone else just by knowing that little bit. I think that's always a good thing to do, and that always applies to business. It applies to friendships. It applies to family. It applies to everything. So showing a little bit of interest in others is probably a good way to do it.
I think that's really important. I think that these days people aren't investing in others as much as they used to. You jump on a train and everyone's got their head in their phone, right, and won't look up. They're basically a zombie. And I think that there's far few people that actually go out of their way to interact with others and be invested in others. And I think people are so insular and caught up in their own lives that that's becoming an issue. I don't think people are as connected in face-to-face sense as we once were because of social
I
media.
agree.
That's hard to reverse, man. That's a very structural, ingrained thing now, and I think it feeds on itself. I think the more that people are on their own and they're on their phones or whatever it is out there in the world, the less inclined they are to even talk to someone who wants to talk to them. Do you know what I mean?
What do they say? It's your phone can either be an excuse not to talk to anyone, or a tool to talk to someone. So you can look at it in two different ways, right? So you can use it as an excuse and just hide inside your phone and be like, sitting on the train, not looking up.
I've done it myself. Like you jump in a lift and then you just don't want to be awkward, so
you pull your phone out. Yeah, isn't that weird that? I mean, that was never a human reaction.
No.
But now it's like the first thing you do. If you've got nothing to do, it's just like...
Oh, and I've tried to get myself out of it. Like I try and I've noticed myself that because of technology, it made it harder and harder to make that effort. But I've tried to, and I try and push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. Where if I find myself in a situation like that, I'll go, no, I'm not going to pull my phone out. I'm actually going to say, hey, how you doing?
Actually, just chat with someone. No. It's funny, we've all been in that social situation when you're with like 4 or 5 of your friends and you're sitting around, everyone's on the phone and you're the only one not on your phone.
I get the shits. I get the shits real bad.
Sort of looking around, everyone's doing it. And I feel bad because sometimes I'll catch up with mates and, I'll be waiting for an email because, being national, you've got to deal with Perth, right?
Sure.
I don't know if you guys have that Perth problem yet.
We got the front row.
Like, when you're lying in bed, it's like 10:15, your phone rings, you're like, damn, it's 4:30 in Perth. I'll be doing it all the time. Sometimes I'll finish on a Friday and having beers with my mates and I'll be looking at my phone and you realise what you're doing. It's like, I'm not here.
You got to put yourself up on it.
Yeah.
So, mate, what do you think are some valuable lessons that you can share through your experience to, say, business owners that are watching, anyone who wants to step out on their own and give it a good crack?
Don't be scared of anything. I think that's the best way to do it. It's not like it used to be where failing used to be kind of this big, sort of, if your business doesn't work out, it's a big deal, you've invested so much time in it. People fail every day, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have another go at it. So to be honest with you, I was fully not expecting, that's not the right word, but I was open to the fact that the business might fail. And it's only probably been the last 2 or 3 months, which it's kind of gone, you know what, you're probably not going to fail. But if you kind of start the business with the fear of failing, it's always going to be in the back of your mind, and it's going to limit decisions, and you're not going to probably be as creative or be as, some of those risks you take turn out to be the best decisions you make, right? So, be creative, be open-minded, take on avenues. If you think your business is this thing and it turns out that it's not, be okay with it and go with it and see what you can make of it.
Yeah, look,
that's great advice.
It is great advice, and this is a common theme, and I think that from the words of Warren Buffett, you pay a big price for certainty. So if you're constantly trying to play it safe in business, you're not really going to get anywhere.
No.
And as a result of that, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was reading something the other day, and it was really interesting, right? So they're saying that majority of people, there's 2 things that people can do. That they can become the absolute superstars of their life and reach for the stars, or they can do just enough, right? Just enough to get by.
Get through.
Just enough to surpass the pain threshold.
Yeah.
Okay. So majority of people, 90% of people, 80% of people, whatever it is, will only do enough that they're not in pain. Right? They'll only achieve enough. They'll only do enough to tolerate their existence. Very few people, and this is that fear of failing. They'll do enough just to not fail. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas a small percentage of people go, well, forget about this. Don't even think about this. It might happen, might not. Let's aim for this.
You might get there.
You might get there. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I think that's a big mindset thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it's super important to also define what success is. For me, I don't think it's not a number. It's not a big organisation. It's not it's a lifestyle thing, as we were talking about. It's sort of my success would be not having to worry about if I want to go away, having a nice-ish car, living close to the beach, catching up with mates as much as I could. I think it's important when starting a business to go, all right, what do I want eventually? If it's going to be, I want a $10 million house, I want to be in Forbes' top 10, I want to do this, go for it.
Yeah,
but obviously, you have a go. You can't, if you're not a part of the game, you can't complain about it.
I agree, mate. And I think that this is a really important point that a lot of business owners tend to overlook the things that are actually important to them, and they get caught up in this social pressure of what is expected of them, or what they think is expected of them. And they get caught up in the numbers and the figures of what they're working towards, but those things are just vehicles. That's what's going to get you to the destination. It's ultimately about what do those numbers and figures actually mean to you, and does that bring you any closer to what you define as success?
Yeah, and I think also overcoming problems, right? What's my favourite newsroom? Have you guys seen the newsroom? I don't know if you ever saw that HBO series. Aaron Sorkin really should have done more. But
you lost me, mate.
You don't know? No. Okay. But they were saying that the first step to first step to fixing a problem is realising that there is one.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people with businesses are like, oh, we're okay. Just acknowledge the fact that there's a problem. Say, for example, at the start or halfway through. And then if you accept there's a problem with something, then you can sort of turn that corner to fix it.
Yeah, so important.
So when you some people, I deal with a lot of people in different industries as well, which is kind of like, you guys have a bit of an issue here. It's going to be hard for me to finance you, right? Whatever like that, and they're just in denial about it. So I can't help them fix it until they realise that there's a problem in the business, or there's a problem in the way they're doing things, or whatever. I think it's important to just accept, this is an issue, but we can fix it. I think that's important.
I think you're right, mate. There's a lot of business owners that are in denial, and we've experienced this as well. And it's really through that education or re-education to help them become aware of the fact of what is actually getting in their way. And more often than not, they've created the problems for themselves. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That they've had some belief that they've had for a really long time, and it's actually become a reality.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of that?
Look, I've had a lot of business owners who have said, I can't find good staff. No one can do it better than me. I have to work weekends. I have to be available after hours. And I've had mentors before who've kind of taught me ways not to do things. I've observed their experience, and they've gone 20, 25 years and from an outsider's perspective, built quite successful businesses, but have been plagued with all of these issues that have destroyed their life. And had health problems, have had high stress, have really lived a miserable existence because they've created this self-fulfilling prophecy for themselves.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
And look, I'm a big believer that you should always ask, what if the opposite was true? Because I think that, I think it was once said, if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. And I think that you have to look at, say, for example, like Kodak, and we've spoken about this before, right? Kodak was one of the biggest businesses in the world, right? Untouched for decades. They discovered the digital camera, and then they buried it. They go, no, this is challenging our core business model. So instead of adapting and leveraging they ended up, that was their demise. And I think that what you can learn from that is that if there would have been one person there that said, what if the opposite was true? What if this was the future and the way that was going to allow us to continue to be one of the number one businesses in the world for the next 100 years, then things would have been very different.
Better keep adapting, I guess.
And that's important, because there would have been a team of execs, right? There would have been a lot of guys there, 10, 20, probably back then, 10, 20 white blokes in their 50s, right, who were all on $1 million plus, right? So we're not talking about dumb people. We're talking about, they knew their industry, highly educated. Now, all of them there, when it came up, they were, that was yes, Charles here, and they were all, patting each other on the back. This is a great idea. Let's bury this camera. So even with Jackson and I in business, right, sometimes we'll come up with an idea, and I'll agree with it, and I'll think in my head, that's a pretty good idea, and I'll challenge him on it anyway. Just to make him
devil's advocate is pretty important.
Just a devil's advocate. Even if I agree with him, I'll go, come on, Jackson, what about this? What about that? And you can see he looks up and his brain starts ticking over. And not that you have to do that. You have to do that in business, because if me and him or you and any other business partner just continue to agree with each other all the time, then it's like having one mind. You know what I mean? You need to have someone go, well, think of the opposite,
And if every good idea was a great idea, we'd all be billionaires.
Exactly right.
That's right.
So, for those kind of one-man bands or the guys that are just getting started, who do they go for as the devil's advocate for that if they don't have anyone else in their business yet?
They need a wealth coach, mate. They need us. They need Aureus.
Quick plug.
This is a shame, but you need to ring Aureus. You need a wealth coach. No, but that's serious. You need someone. You need someone to watch your back. Do you know what I mean? It's how many times have we seen it with business clients that come to us? They've we're going to do this. All right, have you thought about this? No.
I'll be honest with you, I'll say they go to anyone. Because like my girlfriend would have heard about 50 business ideas of me, just like reading about, what do you think about this? We're going to make toys, anything. I think ask your partner, ask your friends, bounce ideas off your family, bounce ideas off clients, bounce ideas off anyone. If you're shy to express if you've got an idea or you need a bit of advice or you're not sure if it's going to work, if you're shy to express that, your business is never going to grow because you've got to be humble and you've got to have humility in the sense of going, all right, cool, I've got this great idea, rather than just rushing in. Maybe I'll ask, my dog or something, I don't know, just anyone, just ask anyone that's going to be giving you any feedback, because it doesn't matter, they don't have to be an expert.
No.
And sometimes people that don't know anything about finance will say to me, that's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
And it could be it's just such a simple problem with it that I've overcomplicated in my head.
They're outside of the square.
They're completely outside of the game, so they're like, well, that just seems stupid. Okay.
I agree with you.
I agree as well. But I think that you need to be mindful, because I think there's a lot of personalities, particularly dominant personalities, because most of us as entrepreneurs are go-getters, right? We've got that personality where we can't be conquered, we can't be questioned, and it's our way or the highway, right? So I think a lot of us run the risk of, when we do ask people for their opinion, and if they do have a differing opinion, or they say that won't work, we throw up our defences straight away and go, nah, you can get stuffed. I'm going to go ask someone else until they agree with me, right? So we need to be careful, because you've got to toe the line there. I think you've got to take everyone's perspective into account and try and be as objective as possible when it comes to making those decisions.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to, you need to be able to articulate both points of view in a way that they're understood. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then you can make an educated decision, because it is hard. It is hard because sometimes you don't want to ask someone, your idea, or you want to do this or you want to do that, and they're just naysayers, right?
Yeah,
so they just think everything cannot be done, right? They haven't done it themselves, so it can't be done. And you also don't want the big opposite extreme, where everyone's just a yes man. They just agree with everything you say.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're never going to vet your own problems, mate.
Correct. Right. See, I think when you've found someone who you can always bounce an idea off, you need to hold on to that person. Mine's my wife, right? Whenever I have a thought and I can't determine the answer in my own head, I always go to my wife, because she always tells me the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And it's, we've been doing that for nearly 10 years, and it works. It works.
Mate, yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's just, you know that they're not going to slam you down if you're wrong. I've got a bunch of mates like that are sort of similar. We have sort of the same sort of business mind and the same sort of ideas of what we want, just in completely different industries. And they're great people, But I think people hesitate to get sort of. Sometimes if you're a startup business, getting, for example, a business coach, getting a wealth coach, or getting something like that, someone that can come in and just give you a bit of structure and say, look, don't overcomplicate it. We just need to focus on these few things to get to here. I think people are sometimes a bit too proud.
Yeah, look, I find even for myself, I sometimes just need a sounding board. I need to get it out of my head and out. So I call my mum, and my mum is very simple. Love you, mum. And I tell her all my grand ideas, and she goes, "Yeah, that's fantastic. I don't quite get it, but
sounds good.
Sounds great." And at least I get that sounding board. So then I can actually get the words out of my own head and hear how it sounds myself.
Yes.
Yeah, and see, exactly. Sometimes then you finally say it, and you're like,
that's a stupid idea.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, forget that, mum.
Yeah, exactly. They've already got cameras on phones, so they don't want
And this is important. I think that this is all, I guess, the process of planning and looking forward. So mate, in your business, what do you do to plan, look forwards, to kind of give yourself structure and hold yourself accountable to what you're doing?
I've got sort of long-term, short-term plans as well. As I said, it's a case of sort of measuring on a month-to-month basis how everything's tracking. Are we getting as many clients as we want? Am I keeping in touch with the clients from last month? Things like that. Then there's a 6-month plan of where do I want to be, say, coming June 30 or something like that, when at the start of the year. Where do you want to be at this certain point in time? I think having goals for each sort of long-term, short-term, medium-term goals is sort of how I prefer to do it. And I'll be honest, sometimes my long-term goals are way sort of a little bit far-fetched. But sort of that's a big part of my planning, is having the extreme goal and maybe the achievable goal. The extreme goal might be to have 5 brokers with 30 staff each by year 3. Which might sound extreme now, but if I'm not working towards that, we're talking about sort of being up here.
Correct.
If you're not working towards that, then what are you working towards?
Well, we've spoken about this before on the podcast. It's like this 10x strategy where whatever your goal is, you 10x it. Because even though it may be far-fetched and unachievable, you're still going to do better than what you would have done if you had the original goal.
The original goal, okay.
Correct.
I'm fully around it.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I think that's having that abundance mindset, because I think there's far too many business owners, flying back on that similar topic, that play it safe. They've got this scarcity mindset. They set very little growth trajectories, and that they're likely going to smash it out of the park, or they're going to get it or just surpass it. If they would have 10x that goal, they would have done very much better.
I think most people, and this is the sad part, when they're starting out in business, it's always an exciting, ambitious time. Like, no one starts a business and goes, you know what, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to be really mediocre. No one's ever done that. But I think as the day-to-day, because business can get tough, right?
Of course.
And I think that the day-to-day, it just wears them down. It wears them down until their dreams get compressed and compressed and compressed, until they get to that point where they're like, man, I just want to pay the bills this month and I'm happy with this.
And not die.
And not die. Pay the bills and not die. You know what I mean? But
I think starting up for your business is also, it's a really important time to get your personal, shit in order.
Yes.
For me, it was, all right, get back into a routine of going to the gym, doing this, making sure my accounts are done, making sure this is all ready. It was actually almost like your own little fresh start that you were in control of. So I think starting a business is, you're going to be running out of time pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that either before you start the business or when you just started, that you're in a good, healthy routine. You're on top of all your stuff. All your personal affairs are ready to rock and roll, so that when you have 60, 70 hour weeks, you're not having to stress about, all right, cool, have I done the online food shopping? I haven't been to the gym in a year. What the hell's going on? You know what I mean? It's kind of important to get everything ready and prepare yourself for when shit does hit the fan.
Because it will.
Of course it will. It always does. But then again, it comes down to taking that on board.
I can't remember who said it the other day, and it's on that point that you mentioned, that business and life are so intertwined. I think it was Gary Vee the other day said it. He goes, people don't have business problems, right? They've got life problems that reflect in their business.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the old thing. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that I've been in this situation myself where I've made excuses to fall out of my personal routine, like not going to the gym, not training jiu-jitsu, like not working on my bikes, not spending time with my missus, like all of these things. It's hard because of the business. But it's self-sabotage. And there's time, once again, you have time for everything, you just got to structure your time correctly. I'm a massive list person. I don't know if you guys do it. I really listen to everything. Everything's like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. And I've just got bits of paper everywhere around, so I've just got a list on underneath. But it's as simple as writing a list. This is what needs to get done today. 20 things need to get done today, and then you just go done. There's nothing more satisfying than get to the last one and going, haha, cross stuff.
I've nailed it. And it could be, do it. Put a load of washing on, or call this client, do these documents, and then you could throw sort of your lifestyle stuff in there as well. Yeah,
mate. Any last pieces of advice?
I think we've covered a fair bit. I mean, in regards to sort of the finance industry, asset finance stuff, just, sometimes a phone call and getting a quote without actually taking anything, sort of moving forward, just before you're thinking you're buying something or doing something, just have a conversation with someone. Give me a call and we'll move forward.
I think that's really important. I think that far too many people throw themselves straight
into the deep end,
and they've already committed, and they don't leave enough time for the planning. This is all about planning in advance, and this is what Jake does best. So any of you who are watching, listening, interested in getting some asset finance in your business, for yourself personally, to be able to expedite your goals and set yourself on the path for what you need to do, feel free to reach out. Jake, how are people best to get in contact with you?
website, or via just give me a call. It's probably easier just to have a 5-minute chat because you can probably cover more than you can on 10 emails.
Definitely. We'll include all of your details in the description.
Yep.
And of course, it's great having you on the show, mate.
Thanks,
You've shared
guys.
some words
Thank
of
you very
wisdom.
much,
It's been
mate.
very
Thanks for having
insightful, and wishing you all the best in business. So thanks, everyone. This is another episode of Enjoy the Journey podcast, and we will catch you next time.